Brittany.
So today I want to talk about these logical fallacies that we've gone through a couple of them. And there's a great Title Twins guide to logical fallacies, which you should all pick up. So today I want to talk about one called the sunk cost fallacy. And this one's really great because this one will come in use for you whenever you're talking about economics too. That's how I learned about it. Sunk cost fallacy. Let's talk about what is it? Sunk. What does sunk mean? Ship sinks, you lose the ship, right? It's sunk. It's gone. So think about it that way. So now I'm going to put it into a example, a real world example. Okay, have you ever gone to a buffet in Vegas?
Yes.
And you pay a flat fee and it's like all you can eat. And if you're like me, by the second plate, you're starting to feel pretty uncomfortably full. Mm-hmm. Almost want to, that you feel like your button on your jeans is going to come off. But then you keep thinking, oh, but I just spent so much on this buffet.
They're expensive these days.
I can't give up. I got to keep eating. I got to keep eating. And then here I am in Vegas, and now I can't go out at night because I'm so full that I just can't move. But I didn't want to give up in the moment because I had already spent all that money. This is the
sunk price tag.
This is the sunk cost fallacy, where you keep doing something because you think you've already put in the work. You've already put in the money. I guess it's worth it to keep going. And that is a fallacy. That's not always the case. But I want to make sure I differentiate on some things. Now, does that mean that what I'm telling you is you can tell your parents you no longer want to learn piano because it's not worth your time? No, there's a difference between, if you feel that way and if you guys want to talk about it, that's your thing. But I don't want this to be misconstrued as, oh, I don't have to worry about being disciplined and following through on this. I can give up because sunk cost fallacy. In another episode, we talked about delayed gratification and instant gratification. And so I want to direct you to that because this is not what that's about. We're not talking about it's okay to give up. What we're talking about is when you have to make a logical decision that it's time or it's not worth your time and money to continue on something. Let's talk about U.S. foreign policy. So when we were doing this war on terror, which I don't think is actually really ever ended, it's kind of fizzled out, but I don't think there was ever a declaration. Really, there was no declaration of war or ending of war. That's a whole other topic. But it came to the point where it was like, well, we can't pull out of all these countries because we've spent so much money and resources and we've invested in the people and we can't just leave now. That would be a sunk cost. We don't want to do that. And then a lot of us are sitting here going, wait, that's not the way to look at this. The way to look at it is, this isn't going anywhere. We've been wasting money and resources. Why would we waste more and put ourselves into worse situations just because we don't want to give up the ship, so to speak? That doesn't make
or admit that we've wasted money. Sometimes it's called throwing good money after bad. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but it's like if you're going down the wrong course, you're doing the wrong thing. Stop doing the wrong thing. Just because you put a bunch of money and you've invested in this path doesn't mean that makes it the right thing. It means that your costs are sunk. Yep. And the right thing to do is do the right thing. Stop doing the wrong thing.
I think entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs have been serial entrepreneurs. They've had to try a lot of different things and not all of them have worked. Learning to accept and embrace failure is, I think, one of the best features of an entrepreneur. And you're not going to make it if you can't learn to do that. And I think a lot of times that's knowing when to walk away. So when we talk about the sunk cost fallacy, imagine you have this project and you've poured all your time and your money into it. And logically, it's just not going to work. Your idea is not working. There's no demand. The product doesn't work or whatever it is. But you keep thinking, no, I've spent my life working on this. I spent my whole life wanting to do this thing.
Never give up.
Never give up. Never get up. And then you're bankrupt, right? So there are times when you have to walk away and you have to realize that you're not saving yourself any time and money. You actually are saving yourself time and money by walking away and doing something else. And I think so many of us get caught up in that. Rachel, did you have something to add?
Oh, I just wanted to say that knowing the difference between knowing when to hold them and when to fold them, as the song goes, that's the great question. That's tough. That's not always easy or obvious. But when you hear yourself saying, but I've spent this much money and I've already invested so much, and that's the only reason in the pro column, and there's a bunch of cons in the other column, and that's the only reason you can think of to keep going, then maybe you're dealing with the sunk cost fallacy.
And, another thing, and this, I debated whether or not to bring this part up, but I actually think it's important. So listeners are probably pretty young right now, but someday you will start dating. You might think boys are gross or girls are gross right now, but someday you will start dating. And who you choose to marry and spend your life with is one of the most important decisions you will make. And a lot of times, sometimes when you're younger and you're dating somebody, and you've been dating them for a long time, and things start to not work, and you start realizing, like, maybe this isn't the person I do want to marry and spend my life with and start a family with. But then you think, oh, but we've been dating for so long, and we spent so much on that trip we went on, and I spent so much on dinner and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, we may as well just stick it out. I've put so much time and effort into that. And then you could make a very big mistake of choosing the wrong partner. And that's a big deal. And so that might sound kind of a weird example, but the sunk cost fallacy happens in relationships.
Time is also a cost.
Time is probably the bigger cost because time is also money. So it's kind of all encompassing. And, that goes for some friendships as well. And I don't want to say, this is not me saying, stop hanging out with your friends. But sometimes there are relationships with people, like friendships we have in life that are not good, maybe for whatever reason. Maybe the person is mean. Maybe the person is a little bit toxic or whatever you want to say. And sometimes you have to say, okay, even though I've spent a long time and I know this person, maybe it's time to cut my losses and go on to other things. So the sunk cost fallacy, the reason I bring this up isn't just about money. It isn't just about, how much I ate at the buffet. It's also about relationships, not just dating, but every person it's about jobs. I think a lot of people have a problem with that. And maybe they stay in a job that's not fulfilling or rewarding to them because they're like, oh, but I've been at the company for 10 years and, I have built up all these vacation days and, I've given them blah, blah, blah. And you think like, okay, well, then I'm just going to stay in this job, even though I'm not really happy in it anymore. And you might be missing out on the opportunity of a lifetime to do something else. And obviously, again, you have to weigh cost benefits. I'm not saying, oh, quit your job if you're not happy. We're all going to have bad days at work. Believe me. Even just being grumpy, even if it's a good day at work, your own mood can ruin a day. But it's very important to understand this concept because we're so scared of wasting this time and money and resources we've put in something that we're not realizing the rewards we're missing out on by staying stuck somewhere. Like I can think of just in my own life how much it would have cost me emotionally and financially to stay in a job because it was comfortable and I'd been there forever instead of applying for something else and getting me in another direction. So it's such an important thing that isn't just economics or just foreign policy or just dating or it's so all encompassing. I don't know, Rachel, if you have any thoughts on that.
No, there's a lot of applications. There's a lot of times where you need to think about your sunk costs and whether to stay the course. I mean, if you've been in a job for 20 years and if you stay one more year, you could get a pension. Whereas if you quit, then you don't get a pension, or money for your retirement. Then your calculation might be different. But it's important to understand the psychology of giving up the wrong path to switch to the right path. I think of Robert Frost's poem about two roads diverge in the yellow wood, and I picked the one less traveled by, and that's made all the and that's made all the difference. And the poem doesn't say whether that's a good difference or a bad difference, but there's so many choices in life, and it's important to reassess sometimes and know whether you're pursuing the wrong thing for the wrong reasons.
It's funny because I'm really bad at this. In my mind, I try to read a certain amount of books every year, and last year I really fell short. But sometimes I'm reading a book and I'm like, I hate this book. If I read one more page of this book, I'm going to scream at someone. But then in my mind, I'm like, oh, but you're 7 chapters in. And I used to force myself to read it. And I'm bringing this up because I want to know your opinion, because I think this is one of those things that could go both ways. Every time I give up on it, I do kind of feel like, I should have just stuck it out. But sometimes I'm like, I could be reading another book, which usually ends up being Harry Potter for the 20th time. But still, I could be reading something else, So in things like that, when it's like time and energy, would you keep reading the book or would you go on to a new book?
I think if it was just for fun, like it's not for like a school assignment where you have to rack up this many books. I think if it was just for my own gratification, I think I put the book down and I pick a different book. But if it's like part of a summer reading assignment, you have to read 10 books. And I'm 7 chapters in. I think I probably finish the book. It depends on what's at stake.
No, I will say this, because of that, I have like started 10 books in the last week. So there's a downside to this too. Looking things out is also important. But I was watching a TV show where they brought that up. They're like, oh, well, you wouldn't keep wasting time on like a movie. If it's bad, you watch another movie. And like they were debating that, and it was kind of the sunk cost fallacies, what they were talking about. And I was wondering, I'm like, I think I would not read the book, but I was curious. I
think I've actually had literal situations like that where I've paid $4.99 to rent the movie on Amazon, and it's terrible. But I've got to finish it. I have to finish it because I paid the money for it. It's like that's that.
Funny. So this is your homework assignment for families and listeners. Look and see what parts of your life you're incorporating the sunk cost fallacy, or you should be recognizing the sunk cost fallacy rather.
Yeah.
Because it is all around you. We brought up a bunch of very different examples, but try to notice it. Try to see when you're doing it, if you should be doing it, if maybe you should, I don't want to say give up, but make another course of action, take another course of action.
Change course.
It's an interesting thing to recognize, discuss, and possibly act on. So we will leave it there. As always, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. And until next time, we will talk to you soon.
Talk to you later.